afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Fitton Center for Creative Arts. Wonderful to see such an amazing crowd here on a beautiful afternoon in downtown Hamilton, Ohio. My name is Ian Mackenzie Thurley. I'm the Executive Director here at the Fitton Center, and it's my great pleasure to welcome you to Celebrating Self as we celebrate the life of Dr. Al Miller. With all of that, I would like to thank ArtsWave, the Ohio Arts Council, the City of Hamilton, and the Hamilton Community Foundation for their ongoing support of the Fitton Center. Please do put your hands together. We appreciate that. Thank you so much. Mayor Moeller is in the house today. We really do appreciate the dedication of our major funders in helping the arts not only here in Hamilton through Greater Cincinnati, but through the great state of Ohio. Speaking of support, we would like to thank Kathy Klink, who is our series sponsor for Celebrating Self this year. Thank you so much, Kathy. To our good friends at TV Hamilton, our media partners, they've been absolutely fantastic. You can see this live streaming right now to all our people out there on the interwebs. They'll be on YouTube, and then from 10 o'clock this Friday night, they'll be having screenings of this particular program on TV Hamilton. So if you'd like to catch that or get that to friends, we'd really appreciate that. But thank you so much to TV Hamilton for all of their support. Is Kirsten in the house? Can you go get her? She's right there. My gosh, she sits down. I'm shocked. 2 women in a kitchen, ladies and gentlemen. Can we have a huge round of applause for this? Yes, for lunch. I cannot tell you the care and dedication by Kirsten and all the TWK staff. They're all at the back. The passion and the energy they put into feeding all of us here and all of you there throughout, particularly for our Celebrating Selves. And if you've been here for Fit and Family Fridays, we really do appreciate it. Thank you so much to 2 Women in the Kitchen, incredible, incredible partners here at the Fitton Center. Thank you. If I get through this quickly, then I get to go and eat. So this is all good. Plenty to see and do here at the Fitton Center. Right downstairs, we have the Photo Focus exhibition, which is the land and that which lives on it. Go downstairs. Those galleries are open right now. Incredible local and national photographic exhibition going on in both of our galleries and downstairs. We have a fantastic show coming up very soon called 90 Lies an Hour. It's tall tales, writings of the truth. No, that's not the election for next week. It's a show here at the Fitton Center. Paul Strickland on the 12th. And we do have to tell you, we have an incredible show here in the ballroom on December 31st. It's a New Year's Eve party. It's going to be incredible. There's going to be food by 2 Women in the Kitchen. There's going to be a 9-piece band. There's going to be a bar. There's going to be party favors. It's going to be an incredible night out. We're going to do a champagne toast and breakfast afterwards. Get onto your tickets soon. Reserve yourself a table here in this beautiful Carruthers signature ballroom for New Year's Eve. We'd love to see you here. And if you haven't got your Christmas tickets for a Christmas show yet, please do that this afternoon. And that's not a sales pitch. I think we have 10 seats left, so get on to that. All happening here at the Fitton Center. We're really excited as we celebrate today. But before we start with the speaker today, we would like to acknowledge the fact that right at the moment he is 99 years old plus 11 months and 3 days. For on the 20th of November, Dr. Miller will turn 100 years old. Maestro, can you please, ladies and gentlemen, can you please sing happy birthday to Dr. Miller in celebration of his 100th birthday. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, Dr. Miller. Happy birthday to you. Congratulations, Dr. Miller.
Thank you all very much. You live long enough, you're getting good experience. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And ladies and gentlemen, Gerhard Almidas on the piano accordion today playing for us. We'd like to thank Bill Mentz for the cake and the cupcakes today. Thank you so much. We really appreciate that in celebration of Dr. Miller. Thank you so much. Dr. Miller and Randy, if you'd like to have Dr. Miller take the stage, I can do a little quick introduction. introducing a man who has done so many incredible things, I didn't want to be able to just give his biography, because we're going to see right in front of you this incredible tale, this incredible life. We're traveling. Some of us, good luck keeping up with him. Thank you. Your seat, sir. I, like Dr. Miller, came to this country as an immigrant. I was very fortunate to come here of my own volition, coming here from Australia and Great Britain. But I didn't leave under duress or come under duress and welcome into the arms of this great nation. But Dr. Miller didn't. Dr. Miller had many challenges to come from and then to face, and in all of that, turned around and went back. He has lived a life of service to this great nation and to this incredible community. And that's about all I can say to introduce this man as he turns 100. Thank you, Dr. Miller. Thank you for all you have done for us, this country, and for Hamilton. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the stage, Dr. Al Miller. It's all you.
You all done? It's a good thing that I don't hear everything. My hearing is pretty bad. If I had heard it all, my head might be swelling, and that's not very good. Okay? So please give me your attention now, because what follows now is not very pleasant. It is downright awful. Just give it your attention, please. I'm going to talk about the series of events which collectively became known as the Holocaust, and which occurred simultaneously with World War II, which, with its 60 to 70 million people killed, defined our past 20th century, and that in areas of the world which we have always thought of as civilized and culturally advanced, Germany and adjacent areas. I was born in Berlin. Both of my parents were born in Berlin. All four of my grandparents lived their entire adult life in Berlin. My father served in the German army. That was not a mistake, you heard it right. He served in the German army during World War I, starting in Berlin in 1914. Eventually, he became a frontline soldier fighting on the Russian front. That was not a lot of fun. One of my grandfathers, along with a partner, started a factory making shirts and pajamas in Berlin in 1871. What I'm saying here is that our family was anchored in Berlin for generations. Excuse me. Give me the cane. Go. Go. That is my father in his German dress uniform. The document that you see is one of 4 such documents attesting to bravery and promotions and medals and so forth. I have all of them here. Anybody wants to look at them afterwards, you're welcome to do that. That is my father-in-law, my wife's father with the Austrian army, same set of circumstances. My father had two. The young man standing at that gate, that was one of them. He was a high school teacher. He taught Latin and Greek. In those days, you were not considered really educated unless you could read the classics and the original. That's what he taught. One day he didn't come home. People went looking for him and they found him, beaten to a bloody pulp. Why? Because he was Jewish. There was no other reason needed. He recovered, however, and when he did, he took his young wife and his 2-year-old son and they moved to Palestine. This is 50 years later. I said the factory was started in 1871. You see the number 50 up there. So that's the 50th anniversary. Two gentlemen in the center. One of them is the grandfather who started it all, and next to him is his partner. On his right is my father, who took over the direction of the factory at that point. The two gentlemen in the center, they retired on that day. The gentleman on the left is my father's other brother. That was my favorite uncle. He was murdered in Auschwitz 20 years later. Hitler was appointed chancellor, which is the same thing as prime minister, on January 30, 1933. He lost no time letting the Jews of Germany know which way the wind was going to blow. They started, and during the first month, they started the boycott of Jewish-owned shops. The sign that you see there says, Germans, don't buy from Jews. Another month later, the first concentration camp was established in Dachau, which is a small town just outside of Munich. By the time the Germans were done, there were thousands of such concentration camps distributed throughout Europe. In addition to those concentration camps, there were 6 camps that were not called concentration camps. They were called extermination camps, and that is precisely what they were. People by the tens, by the hundreds of thousands, were killed in those camps immediately upon arrival. All 6 were located in Poland. Auschwitz was one of them. Now, just another quick word about Auschwitz. At the height of its capacity, meaning the gas chambers, this is hard to believe, but it happened. Between 10 and 12,000 people were killed in Auschwitz every 24 hours. 10 to 12,000 people every 24 hours. As I said, that was the smooth operation of the gas chambers. Approximately the same time, they burned the books. What books? Any book whatsoever, as long as the author was Jewish, into the flames. It didn't make any difference what the topic was. Albert Einstein's writings, you're darn right. As long as the author was Jewish, the topic was irrelevant altogether. Now, also some books by non-Jewish authors were also burned up. Those that propagated the idea of freedom of religion, which is probably the most basic freedom of them all. You cannot have freedom of religion unless you also have freedom of assembly and freedom of speech. Some of the books that by non-Jewish authors were Ernest Hemingway, Jack London, H.G. Wells, Upton Sinclair, Margaret Sanger, Helen Keller. The list is very long. Hitler came to power, as I said, in January 1933. And when he came to power, I was 10 years old and I was enrolled in public school. That's my school, that is my class. I'm in there someplace in that crowd. What happened when Hitler came to power? What happened in my school? Well, it started kind of easy. The first thing that happened was the greeting between the teacher and the class. There was no such thing as good morning class, nothing like that at all. And I give talks in Catholic schools, and in Catholic schools the day used to begin with a prayer, which is wonderful. Nothing like that anymore whatsoever. This is the way the teacher undertook the greeting. Now, he was marched to the front of the classroom, turn around, and give this salute. Heil Hitler! That is exactly what happened. And the entire class, my class, 10 years old, standing at attention, responding in precisely the same way, Heil Hitler. At the end of the class period, the same ceremony would repeat itself. The teacher, Heil Hitler, and the class, Heil Hitler. Now, I did this, of course I participated. If I had not, I wouldn't have lasted the same day. Other things, however, became more serious. Kids I had been playing with all along started to withdraw from me. They no longer gave me an answer, they turned their back, they made remarks. And that was just the beginning. There were other 3 or 4 Jewish kids in the class. One by one they left. Did I leave? I did not. I stuck around in that class, in that school, for over 2 years. What could possibly have impelled me to do that? Well, there were 3 reasons at the time. When I think back now, I think this was all pretty stupid. The 3 reasons were not very good reasons, but that's how it seemed at the time. You change your mind as you get older. I had 2 very good friends in that class, really good friends. Both of them had become members of the so-called Hitler Youth, which is the junior contingent of the stormtroopers. And both of them many times came to class in the Hitler uniform with the swastika armband, all the rest of it. But none of that made any difference to them or to me. We remained good friends, and I valued that so highly. That was one of the major reasons for me to be there, to stick it out. Another reason was sports. I had always been, since I was 10 years old, I had always been convinced of the tremendous advantage of physical fitness. And I had been a member of a soccer team and a running team, and I was quite good in both. And they left me alone, and I loved that. And that was another reason for me to be there. The third reason I cannot explain. I was stubborn, and I just didn't want to be chased away. By my very presence there, I wanted to prove something. I don't know what I wanted to prove, but that's how it felt at the time. So I stuck around, and without trying to draw attention to myself, I didn't want to be at the head of the class or at the bottom of the class. I wanted to sort of fix it with my grades, that I would stick around sort of in the center, not to be noticed. And it worked. Nowadays, looking back, I couldn't have... I can only shake my head at it. Now, teachers, same thing. A number of them started to totally ignore me, never called on me for anything. That was fine with me. I liked that. That was okay. But one of them, one teacher, and I see him in front of me now. I know what he looked like. I know how he dressed. I know how he talked. And I can only think of him as an evil and a nasty person. He made horrible remarks in my direction in class. He was not a bad teacher, but as a person, well, okay, one day I had a real run-in with him, and that determined pretty much my next, I don't know how long, but several months at the time. I'm sitting in back of the classroom, talking to somebody, talking, and not thinking of anything particularly important. He sported the swastika on his clothing, and I tell him, take it off, I won't put it on myself. There were so many swastikas all over in school, on streets, draped from houses. There were so many swastikas everywhere, you didn't see him anymore. So he thought nothing of it. He gives me the swastika, I put it on my clothing, promptly forget that it's there. We keep on talking. In marches that nasty teachers, goes to the front of the classroom, turns around, gives a Hitler salute, everybody responds. He immediately sees this on me. Now, corporal punishment was allowed in those days. It wasn't used very much. Just the fact that it existed apparently served as a deterrent. He saw this on me. Marches right up to me. He didn't touch me. We were about this far apart. And he tells me things. And he talks to me. And what he said, I can't begin to tell you. He called me every name under the sun. He called me some things that I didn't know what they meant. I was 10 years old. I didn't know all the expressions. And he called me this and that and the other. Now my memory has become very deficient. It really has. But there are some things that I don't think I will ever forget. And this is one of them. This is how he finished what he was saying. I think you will want to get into a concentration camp, and I can help you to get there. I thought he was serious, and he was serious. I tell you, the next 2 or 3 weeks, I would not want to live through those again. This was today. When I think of that today, things happen inside me. Those were the 2 most horrible weeks in my entire life. I did not tell my parents about it. I knew they had very serious issues of their own at the time that they were wrestling with, and I just could not tell them and aggravate them still further. Later on, when we were out of Germany, it didn't bother anymore either. It didn't matter anymore. It didn't matter anymore whatsoever. So it just disappeared. Okay. I was sort of adventure-minded, and I liked to be on the streets. For a Jewish kid to be on the streets, especially to be seen in the vicinity of these marching stormtroopers, was not without danger. And I knew that. I was very much aware of it. And I guess that was the very reason that I was on the street, to see how I could manage the danger and to get away quickly and so on. Well, here again is something that I hear as if it happened this morning. Because they were singing. They were always singing. Well, not always, but very much they were singing. And this is one of the ending of what they were singing. Excuse me. This is how it ended. I'll give it to you in German and I'll tell you in English. Wenn's Judenblut vom Messer spritzt, dann geht's nochmal so gut. When Jewish blood spurts from the knife, everything works twice as well. Can't begin to tell you how many times I heard that, as if I heard it this morning. Okay. Now we come to 1935. The so-called Nuremberg laws. A lot of laws, I'm not going to bother to talk about that, but the core of of those laws, we were, all Jews, overnight, had this German citizenship taken away. We were no longer citizens of the country that my father had fought for. We had become German subjects. And we no longer enjoyed the protection of the German courts. They could do with us whatever they wanted, and believe me, they did. Okay. This is another part of the Nuremberg laws. And here's another one. The Olympics. Okay, I do want to spend a minute or so on the Olympics. In 1936 in Berlin. I was there. There are not a whole lot of people anymore who can say that. But I did. And I saw one of my heroes. I had several heroes, and this one was one of them. Jesse Owens. I'd like to see the hands of those who remember the name Jesse Owens. Oh, a lot of you. Thank you, thank you. Okay. Jesse Owens, he participated in a 100-meter dash, 200-meter dash, 400-meter relay, which he anchored in a long jump, and he got gold in all of them. Hitler was there at the same time. Hitler attended every day. So when it was announced over the radio that the United States had picked up another gold medal through the efforts of Jesse Owens, what did Hitler do? He got up and left. He wouldn't be caught dead shaking the hands of a black person. Hitler committed suicide on April 6, on April 5, 1935. He would now turn around in his grave if he knew there is a Jesse Owens Street in Berlin close to that stadium. I was very lucky. I was able to leave Germany in 1937. I was 14 years old. I left alone to Switzerland. My parents managed that somehow. My brother was 16. He left alone. He ended up in London. My parents were not able to leave, not yet. Later on, through I can only call them a miracle, they were able to leave later on. Okay, now we come to 1938. Anybody here has heard of Crystal Night? Some of you have, a lot of you have not. I think I will tell you a little bit about Crystal Night, what happened then. That was November 9th, 1938. On that night, the Germans took off their gloves. They did horrible things, and any Jew still living in Germany at the time knew that the time had come to get out in any way that you possibly could. But it was also at that time that the world had closed its doors, and I'm embarrassed to say that included the United States of America. The doors to America had never been open very much. That had been arranged in the 1920s with the system of numbers that you had and so on. Where was I? Crystal Night, yeah, okay, excuse me. On that night, the Germans arrested and threw in the concentration camps thousands upon thousands of Jewish men. 10,000 of them in Berlin alone. My father was in dire danger. My parents eventually ended up in hiding. with a non-Jewish lifelong friend of the family. Her picture can be seen at the Humanity and Holocaust Museum in downtown Cincinnati. Right now, her picture is there. And I think we have a picture here. No, eventually we'll have it here. On the morning after that, November 9th, they picked up Jews wherever they could find them, took them to the streets, forced them to their knees, threw stuff down, said, "Here, clean it up." Sometimes I would throw them a toothbrush, sometimes not at all, and here, clean it up. But they circled around, mocking them, kicking them, laughing and having a wonderful time doing them. That happened to my wife. Sorry, not to my wife, but to my wife's mother and to my wife's brother. What you see here on the right side. Oh, that's the lady that I was talking about. My parents went into hiding in her apartment. And that's me in the United States Army. Now, I've left out a whole lot of things. I left out, well, too much, but time doesn't stand still either. I was given 45 minutes, and I still have quite a bit to go. So let me just go ahead here. I lived in Switzerland, then Belgium, and then Holland, then a year and a half in England. Well, in England we were classified as enemy aliens and treated as such. My parents, I mentioned that they were eventually able to leave, and they left with $5 in their pocket. This is exactly true. $5. Then 10 marks. That was for each. So that's $2.50 for each person. So that's $5. That's how they left. And that's how they arrived eventually in England. And they were classified as enemy aliens. And there was a law in England at the time that enemy aliens were not allowed to work, were not allowed to have paying jobs. They arrive with nothing, now they may not work. So what happens? There was a loophole, a big loophole. Enemy aliens under the age of 18 were allowed to work. That meant my brother, who was 17, and I was 15, so we went to work. That's all there was to it. Problem solved. Okay. No, go back again, please. Go back again. All right, I arrived in New York on July 31, 1940. I was 17 years old. When I was 20, I checked with the draft board because I'd heard that the army would not accept people who were not citizens, and I was not. It takes 5 years to become citizen from the time that you make application, and I had been here only 3 years, so I was not a citizen, and the army would not accept me. And the draft vote said, yeah, that's basically true, but many times they make exceptions, and they don't know when or why or what, but the exceptions do exist. And then in my case, they made an exception a little bit later, and I found myself in the United States Army. And now how much time have I got? 10 minutes?
Just keep going.
Okay, I'll tell you about the army a little bit. Got in the army in 1940, and they put me into the medics, which I liked. I learned a great deal. I learned a whole lot besides putting on a band-aid on somebody, let me tell you. It was a very intensive training, and I picked it up, and it serves me right to this very day. It's fine. So they taught me how to save people. Then a little bit later they put me in the infantry. Now they taught me how to kill people. Yeah, it's true. With the M1 and the bazooka and the 45 pistol, and I'm dead certain that many of you have served in the armed services, so you know what weapons I was talking about. Okay, wherever I was, and I was being shoveled around from this company, that company, that company, and wherever I found myself in the army, I tried to tell them that I was in command in 2 other languages, German of course, and also French, because when I lived in Switzerland a year and a half, that was in the French-speaking part of Switzerland, so I picked up French, became my second language, and so I let them know. I was a jeep driver, and one day some officer wanted to be taken someplace, and happened to be the jeep driver for him. If he drive and drive, he didn't say a single word to me, and then he wanted to go someplace, and he went someplace, and then he came back, and I started the motor wouldn't work. Turn and turn the key, and nothing happens. Well, I'm the jeep driver, I'm supposed to know what to do, but I had no idea, nothing. Still don't. But I did know how to open the hood. So I go around and open the hood and make a little noise, banging things against each other to make them think that I'm doing stuff. And then I come back to sit down and pray, please motor start, and it did start. And that's the first time that this officer starts to look at me, and he says something like, "Well done, soldier." So I dared to ask him if I may ask him a question, because that's not such a common thing for a private to ask a question of an officer who's not the officer in your own unit. That can go wrong. But I took the chance, and he said yes, and I told him that I am a jeep driver, and anybody can do that, but I have 2 other foreign languages. Maybe the army can make use of that. He didn't say another word, nothing. But a few weeks later, I found myself ordered to go to Camp Ritchie. And Camp Ritchie was a sort of a secret, semi-secret military installation in Maryland, close to Hagerstown. And it turned out that I was taught, I was really taught almost day and night for 3 months or something like that. Intelligence, counterintelligence, interrogation methods, map reading, different kinds of maps, all this sort of thing. And I was well trained. And then they sent me back eventually to Germany, and I did interrogation for 11 months. And that's when I did the army some good. And that was my army career. Okay, yeah, that's me, believe it. And the dog, that was the best friend I ever had in my life. Truly the best friend I ever had. For 11 months, we were never apart from each other. Okay, next please. When I came back, I immediately joined the soccer group. Everybody in this group, everybody had some experience with the Holocaust in some way or other, either had been confined, or, well, I'll just tell you. The man standing on the right side was a friend of mine, not a close friend, but a pretty good friend just the same. His name was Werner Koppel. Anybody here ever hear of him? Well, the rabbi did, and nobody else. Werner Koppel was confined to Auschwitz for, what was it, 9 months?
22.
How long?
22.
I'm sorry, yeah, right, for 22 months. That was at a time when the life expectancy for a young, strong male in Auschwitz was between 30 and 60 days. He made it for 22 months. The fellow standing on the left, the second one on the left, his name was Art Lux. He was another a good friend of mine. His entire family had been killed. Every last one of them. Close family, not so close family, they were all gone. He was the only one left, and he didn't know how to handle that. He didn't know what to do. And fairly soon after this picture was taken, he killed himself. That was Art Lux. Next, please. Okay, that was our very last visit to Berlin. I've been, how many times have I been in Berlin? In Germany, I think 4 times. In Berlin, maybe twice. I don't know. Okay, that's me with a red sweater there. And that's my wife over on the left side. I think we'll call it quits at that point and ask for questions. There should be lots and lots of questions. There are lots of things that I haven't even begun to mention.
Before you talk questions, talk about your arrival on the ship in New York.
Okay, here's a story that Randy here wants me to talk about. We're arriving in New York, and we're looking at the Statue of Liberty. Now that is an experience. Now our family, they were not the only ones. The entire railing was taken up with people just staring at the Statue of Liberty. As for myself, I'd lived in 5 countries. I wasn't welcome in any of them. And now there's the Statue of Liberty. Would I be welcome in America? I tell you, to this day, to this moment, I can't talk about it. I just can't. So anyhow, we got back to we arrived in New York, and I will tell you the story with the immigration officer. That officer comes on board ship, establishes himself on one of the cabins. Everybody goes through that. Eventually our turn comes. This was the first American I've ever seen. And I wondered if they all looked like that. Just a flat straw hat, open shirt down to his chest, and very, very friendly. He said, please, and he said, thank you. We were not used to that from any official in any of those countries in Europe, none whatsoever. And he says, may I have your papers, please? And my parents gave him their papers. Everything is fine. When my brother's turn comes, he gives him the papers. Everything is fine. My turn comes. Where are my papers? Who took them? Why are they not here? Where are they? I tell you, panic sets in at once. If my mother's looks got killed, I wouldn't be here now. And this is the truth. My sons, who I'm fortunate enough to have them here, they know what I'm talking about. So anyhow, of course, he sees this. This official, he sees this, and he says, "Sonny, relax. Go to your cabin. Any excitement, you probably misplaced them someplace there. You will find them. Bring them to me. In the meantime, I'll take care of your family." He was totally correct. I race to the cabin. I find the papers. I give him, get back up. Get him back up. Here this. Here this. Okay. He signs whatever he needs to sign. I sign whatever I need to sign. We're ready to go. And he stops us and he talks to me. And this is another one of those instances where I don't think whatever he said I will ever forget. And I can give it back to you word for word what he said. He said, "Sonny, you are now in the United States of America. You are in a free country. Make something of yourself. Get an education. Obey our laws, and we will be grateful to you that you came to live with us." I tell you, I had been really downbeaten. I was introverted like you wouldn't believe. I wouldn't look people in the eye. Well, that's different now. And he had a hand in changing that. And I'm forever grateful to him. And that's the story of the immigration officer, okay? All right. An absolute true story. Thank you. Okay, thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, we can take some questions from the floor if you'd like to wait for a microphone so everybody can hear. But do we have some questions?
Oh!
I felt that.
Questions, please.
Questions? Questions?
Just circulate around, I guess.
They have a microphone.
Hello, Dr. Miller. I've heard various iterations from you before. The one that I think would be interesting to the group is how your parents were able to actually get out of Germany.
How did your parents get out of Germany?
Well, okay, I'm considering where to start because it's give me just a moment here to think. My father went, I said my parents went into hiding with that lady. But after a while, they thought, in all good conscience, in all good fairness, they didn't want to jeopardize the safety of that lady, and they made a decision. My mother went back to the apartment. My father knew somebody in a Catholic hospital, and he went to that hospital and contacted this person whom he knew. He said, "I need surgery." And that person immediately understood. My father had surgery twice. The appendix, which didn't need anything done, and something on his nose that didn't need anything done. But those two procedures took 4 weeks. And during those 4 weeks, my mother had the job to find a country that would accept them. Well, good luck with that one. As I said, the United States had closed its doors, and so did every other country. The only country where nothing was needed, no entry visa, nothing else, where nothing was needed if you wanted to get there, were the Philippines and China. Well, if you're in not all of China, just the Shanghai area of China. Now, if you live in Germany and have just about all done with your money, how are you going to get to China? How are you going to get to the Philippines? Well, some people did manage in both places. But my parents did not, nothing like that at all. My mother received an open postcard from somebody who had already made it to Holland. No, to Belgium. And that person said, go to the Belgian consulate and contact Mrs. whatever her name was, give her best regards from Herbert. It's a kind of cloak and dagger story. My mother managed, this is a very long story with secret phone calls from street corners and whatnot. But anyhow, my mother managed all that, and she got in touch with that lady. That lady had the most fantastic connections. Within days, she was able to secure the passports which had been confiscated. I didn't tell you about that, which had been taken over by the SS. And I'm not sure if you know what the SS was. The SS were the black shirts, the most fanatic Nazi adherents in existence. They would rather kill you than talk to you. That was the SS. They had confiscated my parents' passports, so they had nothing. But that lady in the Belgian consulate, through her connection, she was able to retrieve it. And so my parents had the passports, and they left officially, they left legally. They were able to take along 2 small suitcases only filled with old clothing. Nothing else was permitted. And my mother thought of maybe hiding some jewelry in there. My father, no, you don't know what might happen. And he was totally right, because things did happen. And the train, my father never went back to the apartment. He went straight from the hospital to the train station where he met my mother. With the 2 suitcases, and I already mentioned they were able to take along 10 marks between the two of them, 10 marks each, equivalent of $5 between two of them, and that's how they left, quite legally. The train stops at Aachen. Anybody knows where Aachen was? Okay. Aachen was the first larger German city to be reconquered by the Americans with the help of the Canadians during the war. The train stops, the SS enters the train, the SS enters their apartment. Passports, here they are, everything's in order. The other papers, you cannot begin to tell you how many other papers were needed, and documents and certificates from several different government offices if you want to leave the country. But my parents had all that. Here it is, okay. And then where are your things? Up there in the suitcase. They take the suitcases and open it up, everything on the floor. They kick things around. You cannot take this, you cannot take that. Okay. Finally that gets adjudicated. Then 2 of them take my mother in the middle and say, you come with us. They go that way. 2 of them take my father in the middle and said, you come with us. They go that way. They had no idea what was happening. They couldn't so much as turn around and look at each other. What did happen was not all that terrible, but they didn't know it at the time. What did happen was a physical search on their bodies to make sure that nothing, but no jewelry or anything else was being hidden. The search was done I'm talking about my mother now. The search was done by women, but men were in the room making fun with her, making jokes with her. I don't need to tell you what kind of jokes they were. So my mother suffered from that for a long time. She had always been a very private person, and she talked about that. As far as I know, she talked about it one single time. If she had known that I was in the room to hear all that, she wouldn't have opened her mouth. My father, they did the same thing with my father, but that was a different situation. If you'd been in the military, you didn't take all that too seriously. It was still bad and miserable, but you could manage it. So eventually they get back together with their little suitcases, but the train had left. Now what? They stand there and stand and stand and said, literally not knowing what to do. Close to 2 hours later, another train comes. A railroad official passes in front of them and says, get on that train. They get on the train, after a few minutes the train leaves and they arrive in Belgium. They were free and they were healthy and they knew it. And they knew also that their son, myself in Switzerland, my brother in England, we were free and we were healthy. What more did they want at that point? I'll tell you exactly what more they wanted at that point. Nothing. They had everything that mattered. They had freedom and they had their health. And that's all that mattered to them. And I tell you, that's basically all that matters to you when it comes right down to it. If you enjoy your freedom and your health, you don't need anything else. Well, they had $5, and somehow they had to make a living in some way. Well, I already managed. I already told you about the enemy aliens. My brother and I were exempted from that. We got work, so that took care of that. And the next question, please. Did I answer your question in the back there?
We've got one here. A gentleman you may know.
Now, all my answers aren't going to be that long.
Dr. Miller, Hamilton is very appreciative of you choosing Hamilton, but could you tell us how you ended up here in Hamilton?
How did you end up in Hamilton?
The question is, how did I end up in Hamilton? I lived in Hamilton for 55 years, and we really liked it. Hamilton's a nice place. Well, it is. It was for us, anyhow. I was living in Toledo at the time. My wife and I, we were living in Toledo. And I had a good friend from college in Chicago, and that friend of mine, he established an optometric practice in Hamilton. And he was I'm telling you, he was a real good friend. He called me one evening and says, there might be another opening here for an optometrist in Hamilton, come down and look at it. And I thought, well, I always wanted to be on my own. And I never wanted to work for anybody else. The first year in practice, I did work for somebody else. I made my mistakes with somebody else's patients. And so I came to Hamilton. I didn't know a single person in Hamilton except this one friend of mine. It was a very unselfish thing for him to do, because eventually, friendship or no friendship, we would be competitors. Yeah? It's inevitable. And so I opened an office on Main Street, 402 Main Street, and I stayed there for several years. And then I built my own building on East Street between Main and Park, and I stayed there for 40 years or something. And that's how we came to Hamilton. Next question, please.
Question right here.
Thank you. Dr. Miller, could you talk a little bit about the Ritchie Boys and your participation?
She wants to know about your participation with the Ritchie Boys.
My participation with the Ritchie Boys, but there was no choice. I'm not sure what you mean exactly about participation. I had been ordered to that camp near Hagerstown in Maryland, and they trained me. Believe you me, they trained me day and night, so to speak. And I learned a lot. I said intelligence, counterintelligence, interrogation, aircraft recognition, map reading, all sorts of things. I'll just give you one little episode. That's just one little thing that happened. One night, no moon, everything dark. Around midnight, they take 6 or 7 of us out in a truck and take us out of the camp and go quite a ways, an hour away or so, and dump us and tell us and they showed us, they gave us a Japanese map and said, here on this spot, on this map, you got to be there at 4:30. If you're not there by 4:30, you may come to regret that. So you better be there at 4:30. We had no idea where we were or where that spot was, and there was no light, no moon, nothing. And they take off. There's a small group of us. Where are we going to go now? What are we going to do now? So somehow we thought we saw a little bit of light. Not really light, just something that might have been a light, way off somehow. And we decided, well, we'll walk towards that appearance of light. And we walk and we walk and we walk, and pretty soon it turns out it is a light. And we go some more, and then dogs start barking, and there's a farmhouse. And the guy comes out with a gun and asks what we're doing there. And we're telling him we're trying to find our way back to this spot on the map. He says, show me the map. And he told us exactly how to get there. So we got there by 4:30.
Why don't you tell them about the interrogations that you did back in Germany as a Ritchie boy?
Well, the interrogations, they lasted between 15, 20 minutes on the average. People to be interrogated it was my job at the time to make a recommendation. I made no decisions, just recommendation what should be done with these people. They were potential Nazis, potential war criminals, potential whatever. It was my job to do the initial interrogation and then the recommendation, well, what should be done? Should they be retained for additional interrogation? Should they be released? There were 4 zones in Germany at the time. 4 zones of occupation: United States, French, British, and United States. They all had their area where they were the government, so to speak, civil government. What did I answer the question?
Close.
What?
You're talking about the interrogation and talk about the Russians and their fear of the Russians.
Well, okay. The interrogation, it depended on who they were. I knew exactly what I asked them at the time. I was well trained in that, and we had tricks to make them divulge whatever they might have wanted to keep to themselves. I'll just give you one example. We had one of our guys dressed up like a Russian, and he knew a few words of Russian, maybe a sentence or 2. And so the people to be interrogated, they wanted to be retained in the American zone, maybe the British zone. The French zone, they didn't care for so much. The French didn't fool around a whole lot with them. But the Russians, oh my gosh, they sure didn't want to be sent to the Russian zone. The Russians didn't fool around. They would take them, send them to Russia, and probably, and many times to Siberia, not to be seen again for years. And they knew that, or they suspected it at any rate. And so we had one of our guys dressed up like a Russian, and he knew a few words of Russian, and sometimes he would ask him, he would respond in Russian, and they were scared to death of him. So the information came forth. That's one of the tricks that we used. Wasn't the only trick, was one of them. Okay.
I think we have time for one more question right here at the front.
Dr. Miller, did you work or know John Dollaboy at the time working at Ashcan in Luxembourg City as part of the interrogation process?
Yeah, word.
Did you know John Dollaboy?
John Dollaboy, yes, I did.
during your interrogation period at Ashcan?
During the time of the interrogation in Germany, did you know him? Or when did you know him?
No, I knew him. No, I knew him in Cincinnati. Yeah, when he lived in Cincinnati, I knew him. He lived at the Evergreen. Is that correct? Yeah. Yeah, I knew him then. We were pretty familiar with each other. Yeah. Oh, yeah, he was from Luxembourg. Correct? Yeah, right. Yeah. He was a good guy. He knew how to interrogate people. He knew very, very well. Oh, yeah. Okay.
Ian, there's
I
one
guess
more.
that's
One more?
it.
We can do that. We can do one more.
Dr. Miller, thank you for your service to our country. Thank you for the work that you've done with the Holocaust and Humanities Center. My question is this, that you could end with. Why is it important for young people to learn about the Holocaust and hear firsthand accounts from survivors?
Why is it important for young people to hear about the Holocaust?
Oh, that gets to the heart of the matter. That really, according to a recent poll, most Americans have never heard of the Holocaust, and what they have heard is maybe a little bit right, mostly wrong. And so this presents me with a real problem. And I talk a lot to schools. Next week I talk on 2 schools. No, 3 schools next week. And I try to tell them what happened. Most of the time, those kids in ages 12 to 16 to 18 sometimes, they have been reasonably well prepared by the teacher. The teacher knows, of course, that I'm coming and that I'm talking about this. So if the teacher does his job, he prepares them and tells them something about the Holocaust. But on the other hand, I can understand why they don't know. The Holocaust was over 80 years ago. These kids are 15, 16 years old. What do they know about 60, 80 years ago? Nothing. Unless they're terribly interested in history, which not all that many are anyway. They have problems that are of immediate importance. Maybe someone in the family lost a job. Now that's a real problem to them. So I'm faced with a situation that I need to resolve as best I can. It's not always easy. And I try, and I start at the very beginning with Hitler and how to aggravate bit by bit, step by step, all the time. I do the best I can.
Well, Dr. Miller, we would like to thank you for your time today. We would like to thank you for your service, again, to our community, to this country, and for spending some time with us today. And congratulations once more on your 100th birthday.
Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Al Miller.
Help me to get down. Help me to get down. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thanks a lot. Thank you. Really appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you, Trinity.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. We appreciate you coming out today. Thank you to the Holocaust Humanities Center in Cincinnati. And you better watch out. You better not cry. Santa Claus is coming to town for our next Celebrating Self. Thank you so much.
Hold me tight. If you hold me, you got to hold me tight.
Will you go out this?